And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
I'm excited here, folks, to talk about Battle of Legends Volume 1. This is in the Unmatched series. Before we talk about what this is specifically, it's from Restoration Games, and Restoration Games takes older games and brings them back and makes them better. And you can see this with some of their games, especially recently Fireball Island. They knocked that out of the park. This is a remake of Star Wars Epic Duels. Originally a Hasbro game, and in fact, one of the designers of Star Wars Epic Duels, Rob Dalvio, is working with Restoration and has a lot of input into this project here. But Star Wars Epic Duels was a lot of fun, and there was also a Transformers follow-up, but you could take a couple people from Star Wars and fight against a couple other people. So I might take Han Solo and Chewbacca and go up against Darth Vader and two Stormtroopers. Or I might take Luke and Leia and go up against Qui-Gon. There was all sorts of different folks from all the different Star Wars movies, and it was just a blast. It was a mixture of decks of cards and dice. Now, it was very low complexity. It was a game certainly aimed at kids. It was marketed at Toys R Us for the most part, but it was a game that I enjoyed. I was glad to hear this was coming back. It no longer has a Star Wars license. Instead, the license now is kind of like fighters throughout legend and history and lore and stuff coming together. In fact, there are other versions of this coming out. I know there's a Buffy the Vampire Slayer coming, Bruce Lee. But this one here is some public domain fighters. We got Medusa versus King Arthur versus Alice from Alice in Wonderland versus Sinbad. That's cool. If you know me, you know that I like this sort of thing. Duel of Ages, Heroescape, those type of games have these fighters coming throughout history. And this is, again, Battle of Legends Volume 1. There's more stuff. I'm going to talk about the other stuff separately as it comes out. In this particular review, I'm going to be reviewing both the system and, in particular, this box with the Medusa, Arthur, Alice, Sinbad connection. Here's how the game plays. In this game, you can play one-on-one or teams of two versus each other. Either way, the rules are pretty similar. You are going to pick your characters. You can be Sinbad, Medusa, King Arthur, and Alice. Now, these come with minions. So Medusa comes with 3 harpies, Sinbad comes with a porter, Alice with a Jabberwock, and King Arthur with Merlin. For them, you're going to get a deck of cards that correspond to your character. You're going to get a miniature for your main character. So, for example, this is the miniature here for Alice. You'll get a token for any minions you might have. So here we have the Jabberwock token. You'll get a health dial for the minions and the main character. And so the Alice has 13 health here, and the Jabberwock has 8 health. You'll start with these. If you don't have a dial, for example, the Harpies with Medusa don't have a dial, that just simply means they're 1 hit point each. You also have a card for your characters that tell you how far they move. It tells you what their life points are. It tells you what kind of attack each of your characters has. So, for example, King Arthur, you can see, he has a melee attack and Merlin has a ranged attack. King Arthur has 18 health, Merlin has 7. They both have a movement of 2, and it tells the special ability of these characters. The youngest player goes first and places their character in the #1 spot. So they'll put it here. If they have a minion, they'll place that minion in any spot that's in the same zone. So, for example, they could put Merlin here. The other player then puts theirs on the #2. And there's a #3 and a #4 spot, again, if you're playing with teams, putting their minion somewhere in the same area also. And you can see that some spaces are part of multiple zones. There is 2 sides to the board here. So you can see there's a really pretty side here. And here the #1 spot is right here, so maybe I put that person there, and the #2 spot is here. And you can set it up like that. You'll shuffle your decks. You might have something that you start the game with. Alice decides whether she's going to be small or big. Players will draw a hand of cards, and the game begins. Let's take a moment to take a look at the deck of cards. The deck of cards will show you, each card will show you who can use it. So, for example, this card here, Alice or the Jabberwock can use it. Here, only the Jabberwock. Here, only Alice. Cards are going to be attack, that's what the red color means, or defense, that's what the blue color means. Purple can be attack or defense. And then the yellow card is a scheme card. And then there's also a boost number on the cards, as well as what the card actually does. On a player's turn, you have 2 actions out of 3 different actions that you can do. You can do the same action twice. One of the actions is maneuver. When you maneuver, you draw a card off the top of your deck, add it to your hand. You have a hand limit of 7 cards, but that's not until the end of your turn. Also, when you maneuver, you can move your characters. Each of your characters can move equal to the move number shown on the card, and you just move from space to space. You can move through friendly characters, but you cannot move through your opponent characters. You can also boost movement if you want to. You simply discard a card and add the boost number to your movement. A second action you can take is scheming. You simply play a card with the scheme symbol in it. So here, move Alice 3 spaces, change her size. Move each fighter up to 3 spaces, including opponent's fighters. Or Medusa, do 2 damage to any one fighter that's in Medusa's zone on the board. The third action that you can do is you can attack. You can decide to attack somebody else. Now, when you attack someone, anybody can attack the person directly next to them that are attached by these black lines on the board. Pretty simple. A ranged attack is also very simple. If you want to do a ranged attack, you can attack anyone in your zone. And zones are by the colors that your spot is on. So, for example, we know Merlin has a ranged attack. He can attack anybody in this white zone since his spot is white and peach here, or orange, and then he can also attack anyone in this zone here. And so it makes it really simple to figure out who you can attack if you have a ranged attack. The attacker is going to play an attack card from their hand. The defender may or may not play a defense card. It's up to you. When it happens, you'll reveal the cards. Now, basically, you're going to take the attack, subtract the defense, and do that much damage. So in this case, Alice, or whoever Merlin was attacking, would take 2 damage. There's also special abilities. So here, for example, it says if you won the combat, draw 2 cards. This happens after combat. However, Alice's card immediately says cancel all effects on your opponent's card. So boom, Alice is still going to take 2 damage here, but Merlin doesn't get to draw those extra 2 cards. When an opponent has their life removed, so an example of these minions, 1 life, boom, they're removed from the board. But here, if Medusa goes all the way down to 0, then Medusa would also be defeated. When your hero is defeated, then you lose and your opponent wins the game. If you're playing a team game, 2 versus 2, you have to defeat both opponents. So I really like the components for the game. I like that there's 2 maps. I really like this system. This was originally from Tannhauser board game. Being able to see somebody just by knowing what color you're in, it really solves line of sight issues. And I really like that. Not to mention the background. The circles are a little, you know, in your face that you can see them, but the background is actually quite pretty. I adore the graphic design of this game. It's really cool. The back of the cards, the artwork on the cards themselves is just stylistic and neat, and I like it a lot. The miniatures for the game are cool. At first I was kind of surprised. I was like, okay, they got these miniatures for the main characters and they're really well done and they did a wash on them. They're fantastic. And here I got the, you know, just the tokens for the minions. But these are nice quality tokens, and it does cut down on the cost of the game, and it does help differentiate heroes, minions. So that works for me. The dials themselves are pretty easy to spin and keep track of. Overall, the component quality is good. But let's take a look at these different characters. So there are 4 different characters in here. We have Alice, which with this giant sword she has, really kind of looks like McGee's Alice to some degree here. So she's pretty fierce. Now when you play with Alice, you choose whether she starts the game as big or small. Big adds 2 to her attack, small adds 1 to her defense. You have to decide which one to use at any given point. She is a pretty good, strong fighter for sure. Sinbad has no, and Alice, they both have no ranged attacks really, but Sinbad has some extreme maneuverability. It says when you maneuver, you may move your fighters +1 for each voyage card in your discard pile, and there are several voyage cards in the deck, and these voyage cards themselves also get more powerful for each voyage card that you've played already. And I find that to be pretty cool mechanism. King Arthur is just straight up strong. Powerful attacks. You saw that powerful attack from Merlin. There's even a card in his deck that's Excalibur. Look at that. It's a 6 attack. So King Arthur's just about going around and whooping up. And he can boost attacks. He can play the boost card that adds the boost to the attack, not just the movement. Medusa has the weakest minions, but they are harpies. And at the start of her turn, she can do a damage to an opposing fighter in Medusa's zone. So she's kind of doing this. Not to mention the harpies can come back, and she can get these harpies all in people's faces and fly them around the board. And if you take them out, that might not be the end of them. And even there's stuff like this, the Gaze of Stone. So it's only a 2 attack, but if you win the combat, you do 8 damage to the opposing fighter. So you got to know this card's in the Medusa's deck. If you do, you're like, I need to block pretty much every attack. She's not strong, but she could kill me. So you can see there's some very strong differentials between them. Not to mention King Arthur has the most health here, Alice having the least, but Alice has the strongest sidekick, the Jabberwock, and while Medusa has 3 different harpies. And finally, I should mention the insert of the box, which is fantastic. Has spots to put everything, and molded insert for the miniatures to the dials. It's just a great inside insert. Now you're probably watching this and saying, man, there seems to be a decent amount of luck in that game, and it doesn't seem to be that complex. I know! This is the kind of game that should be sold at, well, I was about to say Toys R Us, but at Walmart and Target and toy stores. And this is the kind of game when you have a couple kids and you're like, I don't know what to buy my niece and nephew. Here's the game to get for them because it's so much fun. But also, you'll enjoy it too. Sure, I like complex games. Sure, I like big, giant games with lots of rules. But sometimes I want to play something that's simple, fast, and fun, and this does the job. This system does it. Now, at first, I was kind of like, oh, man. They got rid of the dice, because I like the dice. There's that uncertainty to the dice. But here, the card decks are really cool. They really work together well. And you have to really kind of be on the ball in this game to know, kind of knowing what your opponent has. Like, I showed you that Medusa card. Knowing that that card's in the deck really helps how you play the game. And once you play these a couple times, you're like, wow. And I have to admit, Medusa is overpowered. Also, Sinbad's overpowered. And King Arthur's overpowered. Happily, Alice is overpowered. Basically, every character you're not controlling, you're going to think is overpowered in this game. And I like it. I like the miniatures. I like the tokens. I like the dials. I like the fighting. I like how fast the game is. I mean, it says 20 to 40 minutes on the box. That's true. I like that you can play teams. I like that I can mix this up with other versions of the game. I can have King Arthur go up against Buffy. See you later, Buffy. King Arthur's going to win. I can have Alice go up against Buffy. See you later, Buffy. Alice is going to win. Okay, well, maybe I like these characters a lot here. But I also like how different they feel. They feel extremely different. They have different tactics, and yet this is a game almost anybody can learn and play. This is not for everyone. I know that. I know some people are going to kind of pass right over it because it's just silly combat fun with beginnings of strategy. But that is exactly a niche that is really covered by almost anything else. Every once in a while, toy stores come out with things like this. We saw HeroScape. We saw Tactics come out in the past. We've seen various games where you take essentially little toys and miniatures and fight each other on a very light level. And they almost never last, they almost never succeed, they're almost always gone, and there's always very, very few of them. Then we met these big grandiose games like Batman and things like that where there's tons of rules. We need more stuff like this. This is stuff that will help grow the hobby. This is stuff that's fun. High production values. All right, so I'm gushing a bit about this, and part of it is because I was already in the nostalgia zone, right? I already had that Star Wars Epic Duels that I really liked. I like restoration games. I like what they're doing for the hobby. I like the artwork and components for this game, and I like the mechanisms for the game. Well, actually, I just listed all good reasons why I like this game a lot. So there you have it. That's the system, Unmatched. As time goes by, I'll be reviewing expansions and stuff for it. I hope it continues to grow. I hope it's a smashing success. But even if it is not, I will still get to be able to play this and have a lot of fun with it. That's Battle of Legends or Unmatched. Dice Tower Judgment, excellent.